Hey friends, Bill here. How you doing? Hope you're having a good start to the week. We had a great weekend last weekend in St. Petersburg, Florida, for the St. Pete Grand Prix. There were 11 of us down there. Doc Shank, you guys know Doc. Scott Roney was there. Terry Cohia, Sterling and Carol Long, Gary Ferguson, Gene Bottoms, and Jerry. And we had a great time. Vaughn Kinsey from Lakeland was there. So Vaughn and Scott and I were on one team. Samuel Harris was there. Samuel, Sterling, Carol, and then Gary and Terry on another team. And then Gene and Doc. And hey, Samuel, how you doing? Gene and Doc and Jerry were on the other team. Yeah, we had a great time down there. Samuel, did you enjoy your time there? Hopefully you can hear me. David, how you doing? Yeah, we had a great time down there. Weather was warm, and there were no restrictions on tickets this year. This is my third year being there, and they've had restrictions the last couple of years. And so this year was like a normal year. They typically run the spring this time of year. Samuel says, yeah. Amen to that. So they ran it like normal, and it was a great weekend. St. Petersburg, you have to be there and kind of see. It's one of these cities. I don't want to describe it. It's sort of one of these. Well, it looks like the new age city planner. They try to create a lively downtown with business, some retail, something to attract people downtown. That's the message. Samuel says it was an amazing time opening air preaching minister to the public down in St. Pete. It was, and so St. Pete is one of these cities where they really push the residential out, and they create a real focus downtown, and it's been this way just I think about 20 years. So it's a new city. It sits on the water right there in the Tampa Bay, and they've got this new pier which attracts a lot of people, and so it's a relatively concise area. Probably, when you guys say Samuel, about half a mile, probably from one extreme to the other, maybe a little bit less. It would take us probably 20 minutes to walk from one ministry location to the other, something like that. But it's not a real difficult situation. So it was a good spot. And so anyway, so everything's concise there. And then the track, the St. Grand Prix track, you have to look on the map. But there's some sort of airport there, naval base. And so they run a lot of the race on that naval base. So it's not through the downtown streets. Yeah, it wasn't a big area. It wasn't down to the downtown streets of St. Petersburg. And so what you have is, if you're in the city, I've been in the city without the race, you have this area. So you've got, let's just call it a 10-block area, north and south. And then in front of you, if you're facing the water, is the pier and the water. To the right is the track. And so they kind of pushed the track off a little bit. It wasn't in the center downtown. And so that made it possible for people to come down during the weekend like normal to go to the pier, and that creates foot traffic as well. Really, anything I think about, talk about in these kind of situations, foot traffic. What are they doing to create foot traffic out there? So they pushed it off, and so then they ended up with two primary gates. I guess it was really gate 3 and 5. The gate 3 was the center where people lined up to go in, and then gate 5, probably 5 blocks down. And so they only had 2 gates to go in that we saw that were walking that you'd really walk to, and so that concentrated the foot traffic. And then there's another section over by the St. Pete Pier, and we worked as well. So we were able to basically cover the whole area, get our arms around it from one end to the other, and then have a team in the middle. And so pretty much, when you say, Samuel, with 3 teams, 11 people, we were pretty much able to saturate the downtown area and the fan base with the gospel. Successful. You get there early on Friday and Saturday morning, right? Say 30 minutes before the gates open, because we've learned the last couple of years, you get there early, you preach to the people lined up, and the race starts, and then it gets really loud right in that spot. So then you walk a block away and sort of get away from the noise. So we get there early. We'd stay about 4 o'clock or so, typically catching, I guess, on both days, Friday, Saturday, the races were over by then, basically. Sunday, we stayed till after the last race was over. And so that was good. And then Sunday was the main race. The last race started at 12:30, 12:45, ended about 2:30. And so by God's grace, we were able to catch everybody rolling out. That turned into like like at a football game when the stadium empties out and everybody starts pouring out. So Samuel came over and Doc. So Doc and Samuel kind of worked the main gate because they were coming out gate 3. Who was down at the other end on the last day? I think that was Sterling's team. Sterling, Carroll, I guess Samuel were down there too. And then, is that right? Am I getting it right? And Terry, I forget. Anyway, they caught that gate as they were leaving. So it worked out great. See what Samuel says. Lord, allow us to cast the net for all those going in and out of the race, hearing God's word, preaching gospel, go forth into the hearts of the lost. Yeah, man, it was good. So it worked out really well. It worked out really as good. The only other thing you might do is have some more people really just roam in the area trying to get in one-on-one conversation with people. But pretty much 11 folks, 3 teams of 3 or 4, does the job right there. So, man, it was a great time. Great weather means people coming out. It wasn't cold at all. It's been cold there before. And so, I mean, it was good. Great time, man. Great time. Yeah, y'all were on the pier. Yes, right. Gene, Jerry, and Doc. That's right. So, yeah, it was a great time. We stayed at the Tampa Bay Baptist Center again. It's about a 40-ish minute drive back and forth. It's just so convenient. Bill Stump there. By now he's become an old friend, and we can roll in and out of there. We know what we're doing, and so it's great. It's a great time. A lot of good conversations everybody had, and they share those throughout the weekend. We rode down in 2 cars back and forth. So it's a great event. It's not overly rowdy, and it's not unruly passive in a sense. Just sort of seems to be a right amount of people. I guess there could be more, another 20, 30,000 rolling around or something. But anyway, great time. Had a great time. Samuel came down, flew down from Nashville. Terry came down from Manchester. Doc came down from Minneapolis. So Sterling and Carroll drove down from basically Dawsonville, Georgia, North Georgia. So, yeah, Samuel came over as they came out. I was over there by that gate 3, and Samuel came over there. He caught one corner. You'd have to see it. They come out of the gate, and they go straight, and they turn to their right, start walking down the street. Well, Doc caught them right at the gate where they're going straight or taking a right, and then Samuel caught them on a block down if they're taking a right. And I think it was at Samuel about an hour run you had, 30, 45 minutes of people pouring out of there. We got a little late start. I actually got caught off guard. I all of a sudden looked up. I was thinking about going down there because it was so noisy. It was the last race. And then I realized it was quiet. So we kind of got a late start catching them out. But I wasn't about 30, 45 minutes you were over there, I think. So it was good, man. It was good. Next year, Lord willing, we'll go back. And it's just a good, Sterling said, hey, man, this should be part of the Super Bowl outreach. This year was 2 weeks later than the Super Bowl. But it's certainly an event to get on the calendar. It's a different part of the country, Petersburg, Florida, and St. Petersburg, Florida, which is part of the Tampa area. Since we had such a good time in Tampa last year, it just seemed to be a really good spot. We did try anyway. It was good. It's a good spot. Good event. It's probably a really good spot for beginning because it's not overly intense, but there's enough people there to get you going. And some really good corners. St. Petersburg has some corners with some really wide sidewalks. They've done a good job. It's kind of like downtown Nashville. They have a Grand Prix too coming up August 5th, 8th, 7th, 5, 6, 7. But those sidewalks are really wide, and they break out a lot of foot traffic. These cities, if they have wide sidewalks, they will typically fill up, and they provide great preaching locations as well. They get this big open corner where they sort of even add some space to help people cross the road. Good time. I don't know if I talked to you since I got back from Cleveland, Ohio, but for the NBA All-Star Weekend, we had a good time up there. That was decidedly different weather, decidedly different downtown layout. But Cleveland, Ohio I think I did say this, a great sports town. All the venues, the First Energy Stadium, Progressive Field, and the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse are probably a mile apart, mile and a half. Great spot. Downtown is somewhat busy down at Jack Casino, but Cleveland, Ohio is a great place to preach full time, especially focusing on sporting events because they're going on throughout the year. I think they draw a pretty good crowd. St. Petersburg is typically not that busy. I've been down there before, just on a regular day. It's busy down at the pier, and that would be good. So if you're in Tampa, Florida, that area, this would be preaching at the pier would be something you'd add to your quote ministry location rotation. In addition to the sports stuff, the Rays games, they're probably minimal, but the football and the hockey's good, concerts, and downtown and the beach in Clearwater. So Tampa presents different opportunities in sports, but Clearwater Beach, the pier at St. Pete, Tampa sports over there, and then just some courthouse stuff as well. Plus you have South Florida, South Florida there in Tampa as well. So it's a good area. It's a good area, and we had a great time, and Lord will do it again. So we're going to talk about some upcoming events here. The first one I want to highlight here is the I'm going to take a couple of these off and come back to them. See if I can get this done without unplugging here. Heath Putzel, we're starting the next phase of the Keep Your Finger in the Text sermon prep for open air preachers. We're going to start March 29th for the Gospel of Mark. So what I'm going to do right here is enter this link right here to see what's going on. And but this is exciting. What we as a sports fan, we believe in being preachers, sermon preachers. And you know what happens in that process is when you're going to preach sermons, it takes then where's it going to lead you? It leads you into the scriptures. Hang on a second. Let's see. Sam's asked a question. That's a good question. They no, they don't. They have another website, northername.org, no-other-name.org. But they can contact us. There's a contact place through that website. That's really more of a, hey, are you looking to know the Lord website? And on there's a church directory, and but there's a contact us page. So that's a good question. So yeah, on the Keep Your Finger in the Text, yeah, that's a great question. We're trying to, the key here for us is to know the Word of God, Acts 6:4. Acts 6:4, to be a man of the Word in prayer. This is the command as far as we see it, and so that means really knowing the Scriptures, and that's what we do as preachers. If you're going to preach the Word, you got to know the Word that you're preaching. If you're going to preach the Word, you can preach a lot of things in life, and you can preach things in the Christian church, and we see a lot of those things out there as they scroll through social media, but I think all of us would agree that preaching the Word of God is what we're trying to do. So Heath Putzel is teaching an expository preaching process that we're calling Keep Your Finger in the Text. It's strategies, tools, and a discipline to come into really any text in Scriptures and see what God is saying in the text and also connect to the gospel. So here's 2 points. One, when we come into the text, and I've seen people go through this process. There's another ministry that really does this, Simeon Trust. I've seen people in that Simeon Trust seminar come into this process and was amazed. I was amazed at how much bias people bring into the text. They'll say things the text says that aren't in the text. They'll have a perspective that's not really in the text either. And so we are almost burdened with bias when we come into Scripture. And so what we need to do is a disciplined process to just sort of rid ourselves of as much bias as possible to see what is God saying in that text. Now, this is a big topic, lots of opinions about it. And so ultimately what it boils down to in general is so you have a text, you put it in a context, and you read the text, read the context, read the whole book as many times as possible. That is the fundamental way to come up with what God is saying in his text. Now, there's just simple ways that he teaches some disciplines, I call them disciplines, processes, strategies, and so forth, to really get in this process so you'll have a confidence in the process and understand the fundamental aspect you're looking for, like the construction, the structure of the text, and so forth. And so that's what he's teaching. And then the second, so you come away from that book and say, okay, I see what this text is saying. And then the second part is to connect it to the gospel, not in an arbitrary way or in a way that stretches you, or you're just trying to see Jesus in every verse. That's not what it is. But there is a way that the texts connect to the gospel, and that's what Heath shows you how. So let me just say, I've been through several of these trainings, and I was exceedingly surprised at, once I started to understand the process, how I saw like a chapter in Ecclesiastes much differently in what it was actually the emphasis of the chapter versus what I thought it was. And that, I think, is the surprising thing. Once you get into it, I also did a Hebrews chapter 13, I believe, and really hearing what Heath is teaching, I saw the core issue of the chapter, and that really, and so once you see the core topic, the core issue, or then it frames the text, and that creates your sermon in general. And it was amazing. I love it. I mean, I think it's a great thing. That's why we promote it. So Heath is kicking that off, and the link is there, March 29th for the book of Mark. So you have, and I'm not an expert in the different kinds of books in the Bible, but you have, right. That's right. Context. That's what we're talking about, Samuel. The context of what's in there. So I'm not an expert in the different genres, but there are wisdom literature. We did Ecclesiastes, and now we're doing the Gospels, and Heath has done the Psalms. And so part of what getting in there, you learn once you get in the context, and there are deeper things involved that go with each sort of genre. Again, it is a topic where well, lots of people can say different things, but with Heath, we're trying to reach the goal here is to see what is God saying in the text with the intent to, let's preach what God is saying. Let's not preach what I'm saying, what I want to say. Let me not use a text to say what I want to say, stuff like that. And so we get this, we begin to look at it from his viewpoint. And so then all of the other parts of figuring this out have that backdrop to it. So check out the link. Contact Heath. His contact info is on there. There's a way to send a message to him when you come on the page at the top right when you look on the website. And if you have an interest, send him a message. And so it's a 12-week course, an hour a week. And then we have 2 other stages. Once you get familiar with the first stage, which is the 12-week stage, then you can move into what we call taking reps, when you actually join some other guys and really focus on creating sermons. And then there's a way we can have what we're calling office hours with Heath, when he can, help you figure out how to use Logos to save some time in this process, or just other questions you have, how to find what is that word, extraordinary, extra biblical sources and stuff like that. So, but again, the main thing is studying the text. But again, Heath can offer a lot of wisdom on how to sort of save some time in this process, so you end up with sermons to preach out in the open air. So that's what it's all about. So I'm excited about that. So check that link out. What's next? The Final Four. I'm excited about this. The Final Four in New Orleans, Louisiana. There's already, I think 5 of us that are going to go. Bob McCrary's going. I think Joe Henson and his son are going to go. Pat Rouse going. I'm going. So a couple of the guys are thinking about us. We're just, in these kind of events, we're looking for teams of 10 to go down and be together. It's if you've never been to the Final Four or New Orleans before, the Final Four is a 4-day event. And what I mean by that is what the NCAA puts together. Events over a 4-day period: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The games are, excuse me. The semifinals are Saturday, and the finals are Monday. And so that's the kind of the flow. They have a fan fest at the convention center those days, but plus this year in New Orleans, for you guys who've been to the Preacher Mardi Gras, the quarter is just its own world down there. So there's always something going down on the French Quarter. So for the French Quarter, New Orleans, and the Final Four, these are good times. I've been to probably at least 2 or 3 Final Fours down there over the years, and it's kind of a crazy scene. What St. Petersburg and the Grand Prix was not, which was very kind of a normal, easygoing environment. The Quarter is a different animal down there. So if you've never been and want something new, then come join us at the Final Four in New Orleans. Got a great situation with accommodations. When we've been going down there for years, I've been going to New Orleans for 20 years. The folks there, Steve and Bronwyn Niles at YWAM, let us use their facilities. And this year, it looks like the facilities on the downtown side of the river. And so that's going to be a new experience, closer to the action for us. But it's really cheap, $60 for 4 nights there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Man, you just can't beat it. So if you get down in New Orleans, and I can pick you up at the airport, then it's worth coming down there and preaching down there for 4 days. And if you look on Facebook, our Facebook page, my Facebook page, you'll see all the guys down there for Mardi Gras, and it's just overwhelming opportunity. So you mix Mardi Gras a little bit of Mardi Gras for the Final Four. It's going to be a good time. So check it out. There's a link. Look at that. What's next after that is the draft in Las Vegas, April 28th to 30th. You might have heard me say before, but I was there for the Pro Bowl in Las Vegas. I've been there once before, I think, but not to preach. And it's amazing. On the sidewalks, which I love those wide sidewalks in Las Vegas, it's busy all day long from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., probably later. There's people all the time out there. So you don't need an event to attract a lot of crowd out there in Las Vegas. So it's going to be a preach-a-thon, 8 hours a day. We're going to stay at the Motel 6 up there on the north side, roll into the strip, and just start preaching, man. It's just going to be that simple. Now, the draft is all those activities are, I think, at the MGM, which is somewhere in the middle of the whole strip. And so a lot of those fans, football fans and people, they'll be out and about on the strip. But we won't be out by a stadium on this particular event. We'll just be out on the strip. So again, look for about 10 guys to come. There's already, I think, 4 or 5 folks coming already. Pat Haggerty told me he's coming, and some other people I can't remember right now. So it looks like a good event. So let me put that link up there as well. And come and join us. You know, one thing about Las Vegas, you know, Sports Fan has primarily done work on the east side of Mississippi, and we haven't, you know, most sporting events are really over there, except for Super Bowls in Phoenix and you know, stuff in Texas. So what I've noticed here is is a lot more events starting to happen in the next couple of years in the West Coast. So we had the Super Bowl this year. This summer is the Baseball All-Star Game in Los Angeles. You've got the Super Bowl next year in Phoenix, and the next year it's in Las Vegas. And you've got the NBA All-Star next year in Salt Lake City. And so what we are trying to do here is to really begin to spend some time on the West Coast over there. And so while we could go to Vegas at any time, you know, this is obviously what we do, go to sporting events. But what we want to also try to do is begin to create some more activity out there on the West Coast. And so being there should, hopefully, Lord willing, help us find some new evangelists and guys who want to get out for the first time, stuff like that, like we like to do, we try to do, and meet up with some old guys as well. I think Jerry Collins is coming from San Francisco. I've asked Matthew Redondo, one of the team leaders, to come to the draft as well. So stuff like that. So if you just start to visualize, really starting to, you know, work together with guys that are out there that we know, looking for new guys like we do, then this is really the first event where we're going to try to focus on that a little bit more. Super Bowl is sort of its own animal, but try to focus on really creating a more consistent presence on the West Coast. I'm not trying to talk about Sports Fan Outreach like we're trying to build ourselves up. We're just trying to take some of our effort and energy and focus on the West Coast in these next couple of years, because that seems to be what the sports world is doing. So we're looking forward to being out there. Hope you'll come out there and join us as well. You know, from Knoxville, I can fly directly on Allegiant. So Allegiant Air, if you live near an Allegiant Air airport, they might fly directly into Las Vegas. I would check that out. It might be an easy way to get there, even if you live over here near me or live in the South. So anyway, it might be an inexpensive way to get out there. So check it out, or tell me you want to go and I'll check it out for you. Then the Derby's up after that. And Bobby McCrary is leading the Derby outreach this year. Samuel's been to the Derby. David, have you been to the Derby if you're still there? You see the guys last year that were there. The Derby, man, that's its own animal. It is a sporting event, but it's not necessarily like other sporting events. It's if you've never been, I'll give you a couple of details. The Churchill Downs in the stands and in the infield can hold 160,000 people. That is a huge, huge, huge capacity. And I think it's the biggest, apart from a NASCAR track, that we've ever been to. So what happens here is two things. One, if you've never been to the horse track, what a horse track does is they run races all day long. And so the Derby, Fridays and Saturday, are just regular days at Churchill Downs. However, what they do to make it what it is they have two special races. The one on Friday is called the Kentucky Oaks, and it attracts about 100,000. Pre-COVID, it'd get about 100 or so, 105,000 people there. And then Saturday is the Derby, and that'll draw really around 150. It's amazing. You go from 100,000 people to 150,000. It's a huge increase. So both days there's a lot of people. The gates open about 8, and we're out there early catching people coming in, and then out there till 8 p.m. catching them coming out. So the inflow is really from 8 a.m. to 1, 2-ish p.m. Take a little break, and then about 4 p.m. people start trickling out. And when the race runs typically about 5 or 5:30, from 5:30 until 8 o'clock, they pour out. And so the crowd's attitude when they come out is quite a bit different when they go in after all the drinking and sun and so forth like that. So, but it's an intense 2 days, 2 long 8-hour days, 2 long 12-hour days, 8 to 8. But it's an incredible time. It's kind of like the Mardi Gras. If you've never been to the Derby, you got to do the Derby and just get a good feel for what goes on out there. Plus the camaraderie, 20, 30 guys there standing within probably 100 yards of each other for 2 days. It's a great spot. The way they've organized it and is they pour all the fans in one really close location. So you can really reach all these thousands of people basically from a couple 3 spots. Really good event. This year, Lord willing, we're staying at Pastor Paul Mathena's church, Beach Mountain Baptist Church, which is 1.9 miles from the track. Pastor Mathena is allowing us to use his bus to drive everybody back and forth, and he's going to feed everybody like he did last year. That's the plan. And so, man, you couldn't ask for a greater situation there. And sleeping on cots in the church, taking showers in the shower trail, that's a big plan. And so that's the situation. The topic this year on messages is from Adam Cutshaw and Pastor Jerry Dorsey is, leading the home. We want to emphasize this year at the Derby for men to begin if you're not, or affirm you if you are, in leading your home and your daily devotions, leading them as we should to the Lord, leading them, discipling them in our home. And so Pastor Dorsey, this is one thing he does with his, I think their quarterly conferences called the War Room. And so this is something he's going to come in and give very specific instruction about how to do this. Adam has done this himself. He's been a pastor and an evangelist. He's going to talk about it as well. But if you come to the Derby, you're going to hear some very specific instructions about how to lead your home. Bobby does it. I know that. And he is pretty extensive about it. And he'll be there leading it. And so you're going to have a lot of support to get in to do this if you're not. I personally think this is where the key to the Christian family is the man, the father, the husband leading the family, daily devotions, leading them and guiding them. And then the man takes his family to church. And that's kind of the structure to be under the shepherding of the local leadership, elders and deacons. And so that's the structure versus the husband, the father doesn't do anything, but he does take his family to church or doesn't take them, which is obviously something we would not agree needs to happen. So I certainly believe in the man taking the responsibility, taking the ownership of leading his family and the spiritual disciplines, teaching the word to his family, all these things, leading them in prayer, all that stuff, setting the standard, setting a foundation, setting an example, what it is to be a Christian, what it means to be a Christian, what we believe as Christians and so forth. And so this is a timely message. I'm fully, I go on forever about just the idea of doing it. And in our day, when we have a cell phone, I was telling these guys earlier, when you take this cell phone, this crazy thing right here, what happens here is it disciples you into what you watch. Without question, since I'm around sports all the time, the sports marketers use the technology to keep you plugged in to a seasonal sport. And you can pay attention to UT football all year, even if they go 0-11. You can certainly pay attention to other sports as well. Quote, large sports, small sports. It's just all over the place. There's so much information on the phone. that you have to push back and say, first of all, no, I'm not going to be discipled by this phone. And second, you have to really be aggressive, proactive, take the initiative to disciple your family. And you cannot be passive about it. I'm certainly against passivity here. And you have to be very proactive. Hopefully that's a pretty clear message on our part. So that's what the teaching is at the Kentucky Derby. And that teaching will be Thursday night. That is the big plan. So come and join Bobby and the team there again in Louisville, Kentucky. We're having I guess the next thing after that is our George Whitefield training, June 20 to 24. And so the Whitefield training is if you want to be a full-time evangelist. And what we talk about there is twofold. I'm going to cover one more thing after this to be done. Again, we emphasize in our trainings preaching. So what happens at the Whitefield training in those 5 days is Heath conducts one of his workshops. And the difference there in the workshop is having that time together, being face-to-face, and the sermons that you preach, you do them in front of people. So you're personally critiqued live and in person. And then I also talk about on track 1, for guys that are new or guys that want to go full-time or want to think about it, what I call basically, living the life. Once you begin to preach full-time and you're transitioning from just going to church to preaching, evangelizing, your life's going to change quite a bit. Your relationships will change. As I say, it's one thing to be a Christian, to go to church. People, it's not too radical. It's another thing to start preaching. And so while you might think those relationships will transfer to your open-air preaching, a lot of times they don't. That's just one example of what begins to happen. So we talk about all that. We talk about how to articulate your ministry to people and invite them to partner with you, how to figure out the transition from going to not at all to part-time to full-time, and just talking about everything possible. So when you walk out of there, you'll have an understanding of what you need to do going forward to full-time to become eventually a full-time preacher. So that's the goal. And that's what really full-time is all about, getting your life right and getting the word right, and it'll be that way till you die. Open-air preaching, gospel preaching, evangelism is pretty simple. It's just very repetitive, and the disciplines of it all are very repetitive. And so getting those disciplines down, getting the study of the word down, if you can do that, you can do it. And so that's what we really emphasize at the George Whitefield training. Last thing, it looks like England is open, that you can go without getting a vaccine. I think you have to get a negative test right now, and I think they're loosening up. So it's March 1st. The Commonwealth Games is July 28th. So we've got March, April, May, June, 4.5 months. But the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, England, are really going to go and want to make it a big deal. So get that on your calendar as well. That's a little more pricey flying over to Birmingham and back. But we'll be over there about a 10-day stretch, probably Friday to Monday, that kind of 10-day stretch on the ground, preaching every day, 8 hours a day like we do. So pray about going over there. And as we get ready, Lord willing, to resume our UK efforts. Hey, man, lots of stuff there. Hope I can see you soon. If you have any questions, always give me a ring, 423-724-7500. Just love that. And I'd be happy to chat with you about whatever I can do. If I can help you, I can certainly, Lord willing, refer you to somebody that can. I want to encourage you. Last thing here is to get out and preach the word. The Great Commission, the Lord gave us a Great Commission. And I believe there's so much that happens when we engage in the Great Commission. Now, we think about it evangelistically. And that means, is a man a believer or not? Is he born again or not? Does he believe in Jesus Christ or not? But the bigger idea, the bigger scope is all the things that come from our proactive preaching, the effect it has on the world, the effect it has on the unbeliever, how it subdues evil, how it brings light in the dark. Churches follow the preaching. All these things, there's so much happens as a result of a church that's on mission, a church that's engaged in the Great Commission in their Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the world. And so I just have to say, man, we have got to be fully engaged in the Great Commission, and we need to preach more, not less. If you're preaching one day, I want to encourage you to add a second day. If you're preaching a couple days a week, then go get your pastor to get the church out there. We've got to continue to be proactive here and pushing forward. And we live in a dark world. That is true. And the way to lighten the world is by preaching the gospel. But more than that, it's just the glory of Christ, the love of Christ compelling us to go out and preach his name to this world. This is what we must really buy into, believe in, that the Father says, this is my beloved Son whom I'm well pleased. This is what we preach. We preach Christ crucified, buried, resurrected. We've got to be engaged in it, proactive in it, take initiative in it, and have to just sort of let go of the things that inhibit us from doing that. The model of going to church once a week, which I had when I was a kid, is just insufficient these days, where I can explain some things. One thing I will say is the civil law has changed so much to allow sin in our nation, in our Western world, that it wasn't that way when I was a kid. Now the laws have loosened up, and so much is legal now that it wasn't, that we must become proactive. We cannot presume that we're in some sort of partnership with the civil magistrate anymore about matters. We've got to. So if that was the way you thought about it, that's not the way it is now. Maybe you never thought of it that way, but I certainly was raised in that with that mindset. Whatever your mindset is, for the glory of Christ, we must go preach his name. We cannot relax and rest and just be passive about it, both for his glory and for the growth of the church. The last part of that really is, like all institutions, you grow when you're aggressive and you're selling, when you're taking the initiative, when you're getting out there. That's how a church grows. We're so used to bringing people in instead of going out and pushing out. And there's some merit to that, but by and large, we're going to be alive and thriving scripturally, biblically, and God through God's Spirit when we're out there pushing out, reaching out, and preaching Christ. So let's get engaged. Contact me. That's my number if you have any questions. Hope to see you soon.